Hi, I'm Joe from HarmonicaJoe.com, and this is part 2 of my discussion with musician Rob Scheps, where we discuss improvisation techniques, transcribing solos and songs from recordings. Now, if you'd like to see more videos like this, be sure to click the like button and leave a comment down in the comment section below. Okay, let's get started. Hi everybody, it's Harmonica Joe coming to you with my friend Rob Scheps. Being an improvising musician, whether it's harmonica or saxophone
or whether it's rock or blues or jazz Latin music or whatever it is.
Yeah, good point. And is learning what came before, learning from the musicians that came before. Harmonica players, we all listen to Little Walter, Sonny Boy Williamson, the other younger guys like William Clark, one of my personal favorites. The music is still there. We take the tunes and we learn the solos, or we learn parts of the solos. For Little Walter, her solo to the song Juke, which is pretty much the harmonica national anthem.
Okay.
Which is
I have that record, but I didn't know that.
It is, yeah. It's just a tour de force harmonica solo, and it's kind of like Miles' solo. Speaking of So What, it's just like the perfectly composed solo.
These are well, what we call like iconic solos, like a kind of solo that's kind of universal, where people on that instrument all over the world would know about it.
Yeah. Or
be influenced by it. Yeah, and, but we should address the fact that learning other people's solos is just a means to an end. It's not so that you can necessarily get on stage and play exactly like Little Walter played, because at least emotionally you'll never do that anyway.
Right.
You're never gonna, nobody can be Billie Holiday, nobody can be Charlie Parker, except them. But you're learning these bits and pieces, stuff you steal, a little lick you take, or a whole solo that you write out or that you learn by ear, because you heard something in the solo that you liked, that you wanted to make part of your thing. I mean, that's why we do it, right?
Right, yeah.
So there are all kinds of gradations, like the hills in these woods. You can learn one lick that you just feel like, that's kind of tasty, I'd like to have that in my repertoire. Or there might be a whole solo that you think is incredible, and there's so much there that you want to get things from the whole solo. I mean, one thing you said to me the other day, Joe, we were talking about this before we were filming this, was the idea that, no offense, but a lot of rock and blues musicians might be really fine musicians who have learned by ear, and they didn't necessarily learn music theory or learn to read or go to a conservatory like you and I did. Mm-hmm. Which is not to say that every blues and rock musician is like that, or that every jazz musician is well schooled. I mean, if I have a student or a colleague who says, "Ah, man, shit, I'm a lousy reader." I mean, the last gig I did was a week ago today, and I won't say who. He's one of the best pianists in jazz, and before the gig, he said to me, "I'm a lousy reader, so I might have trouble with some of the charts that we do." But this guy is brilliant. He's practically a genius, and so I don't see any shame in not being able to read music or not knowing music theory. It's just that not knowing this stuff or not reading might hold you back a little bit, depending on what you're trying to do. But if you're a person who is trying to learn a solo by ear, that's really beneficial. And if you're someone who's trying to transcribe it and actually write it down with correct notation so other people can read it and it'll sound right, that's also valuable. I don't think one is better than the other. You're working on your ears both ways, but in one method, you're also working on your ability to write music and to notate, mm-hmm. and to be able to translate what you hear into a chart that other people can use,
which is a valuable skill to have.
Sure. Well, and I make my students transcribe, but I make them do it on paper. So the trumpet student recently transcribed Miles Davis on So What, and sent me a copy of the transcription so I could look at it and kind of edit it, see if there are any mistakes, just any wrong notes or stuff missing or rhythms that are written kind of funny. But usually people will write more than one draft of a transcription. They're in the workshop and it's all sweaty and they're writing it in pencil and there's stuff crossed out, and then later when they think that they've got the solo pretty much written down accurately, they might want to recopy it, make a nice neat copy where they've done their best with presenting that solo in ink or in music notation. Yeah. So nothing wrong with a rough draft while you're trying to get it on the page. Yeah. And some things you go, oh, ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba-ba, and you write it right down, and then somebody goes, Freddie Hubbard or John Coltrane goes, ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, and you're saying, well, man, that's going to take me longer. That's going to take a minute to get on the page.
Yeah.
And then there are ways to cheat that you didn't have 30 years ago. I mean, I had a student in New York City, and she said, yeah, I'm transcribing what you told me, John Coltrane on Moment's Notice, but I'm using this program called the Great Slower Downer.
I was just going to ask you.
And there's another one called Slow Gold. I don't
Yeah.
use those tools. I don't know how to use them, but they're certainly useful because, in the old days, man, you want to slow something down. I mean, you take a 45 record and you put it on 33, and that was but you didn't have any options. It was just that speed difference. But see, now they'll come to me and they'll say, well, Rob, this tune is in E flat and it was at quarter note equals 100, so I made my computer play it for me at quarter note equals 80, which is a slower tempo, but it's still in E flat.
Yeah.
They didn't have to modulate.
We didn't have that years ago.
So the truth is, now you can have computers slow down things so much that it's much easier to transcribe them. I mean, I don't know if it's cheating, but the point is, if your ultimate goal is I just need to get it on the page accurately because I'm going to perform it or use it or arrange it, for a band or something, then I guess you do what you have to do.
Well, I don't think it's cheating because either way you're working on your ears.
Well, that's true.
So either way, whether it goes by quickly and you can pick it up or you have to manually slow it down, you're still developing your ear to recognize the pitches and the rhythms.
That's true. The point is, at whatever tempo you're working at it on, you're using your ears. So that's the whole thing about transcription. I mean, and whether it's audio transcription where you're just learning a solo by ear without writing it down, or if it's visual transcription where you're actually literally transcribing, writing it out. Either way, you're giving your ears a workout to try to cop what you hear on this record or this CD or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay, well look, that brings up a point. So look, it doesn't matter what instrument you're playing. If you want to learn a solo that's really virtuosic and is moving fast and has a bunch of notes and you need really great technique to play it, it could be a Steve Vai guitar solo, it could be a John Coltrane tenor solo, it could be Charlie Parker, it could be Art Tatum, Michael Brecker, but it could be, I mean, anybody who's playing with a whole bunch of chops. I mean, it could be Eddie Van Halen guitar solo, good luck learning how to play that. So even if all you learn are the notes and the rhythms and you don't have the vibrato or the feeling or the articulation, I call it like a cake with no frosting. Even if you've just got the cake, it took an awful lot technically for you to be able to get under that solo and even execute it at all. So it can be a real technical challenge just to learn a solo by one of these virtuosi, You learn a Steve Vai solo, man, you had to work pretty hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Everything's on paper already or on a computer screen. A lot of people go right to that and figure it out, just read it off the chart that somebody else figured out.
Well, look,
there's
a certain benefit to reading a book of accurately transcribed solos. They could be by Woody Shaw, they could be by John Coltrane, they could be by Little Walter. But ultimately, you're going to get more benefit if you take them off the record yourself. You're going to have to hear more to get it under your fingers and onto the page. Or if you're just learning it by ear, like many harmonica players might be doing, just to be able to play along with the whole thing.
I find I remember it a lot better that way.
If you learn it by ear, let me tell you something. If you learn the whole solo by ear, it'll be inside you. It'll be locked up in you the rest of your life. You'll be able to call on it whenever you want. I mean, I learned a Dexter Gordon solo on Gingerbread Boy when I was 13 years old. I can still play it because it's in me. I know it. I don't need to look it up. I mean, at a certain point, maybe after about 7 choruses, I forget what it does next, but I memorized a big part of it. Memorized a big part of John Coltrane on Chasing the Train. So these things, when you really learn a solo, then it gets in your blood, and then when you want to steal something from it, when you're on stage, there it is.
Yeah.
It's like that really old cartoon character who's much older than us. Felix the Cat, he'd walk around with his bag of tricks. Well, your bag of tricks might include that Little Walter solo that you learned last month, and that wasn't in your bag of tricks 2 years ago.
Well, that's great. Well, that's all good information there, Rob.
Okay.
Your dates listed on your website?
I have a Facebook fan page.
Okay. What
Rob
is that?
Scheps, R-O-B, last name is S-C-H-E-P-S. And if you go to the fan page, there's a calendar that has all the upcoming gigs and,
cool.
All the information, the time, date, who's playing, website, whatever.
All right, great.
Yeah.
So improv advice from the great Rob Scheps. And
hope it helps, man.
hopefully we'll have a little bit more at some point coming from him. Till then, catch you later. All right, bud.
All right.